All right, hello everyone who's watching this recorded. Currently we have no viewers, not a surprise. This is pretty ad hoc here. Really just testing this. This is my first time doing a horizontal view and with the telescope connected to, the iPhone connected to a telescope that is not computerized. So this is on a Dobsonian. So this is, as you can see, the view is rotated 180 degrees. So the north side of the moon here is down, and the south side of the moon is up, and the east side of the moon is on the left in this case. So anyway, hello from New Jersey. How's it going? So I wanted to test a few things. Again, I'm pretty new to Facebook live streaming, and this is the iPhone 11. So when I zoom in, it wants to switch cameras. But what I might want to try tonight is if the iPhone tries to use that telephoto camera when I zoom in into the moon, can I, here, let me focus here again, like that. If it switches cameras, can I adjust the mount here? I'm using a Celestron XYZ. Can it adjust to work with the telephoto lens as well, the one that's on the iPhone? I don't know. So bear with me for a minute. But it definitely a great view. So it is still just at sunset now. The reason the sky looks partially black there is just because as you zoom in, the sky gets darker, just less of that skylight hitting the pixels on the camera. So just the way it is. So for me, if I go and reverse the camera, you can see the sky almost looks white behind me. It's blue. So we're gonna see aliens today. I don't think so. I don't think we'll be the first ones. All right, but great view of the moon, upside down. I do have, here, maybe I'll show you this too. So a few years ago, I wrote this book, 50 Things to See on the Moon, with some help with my friend Dave Chapman. And so I still use this as reference because there's a lot of craters. There's 1,500 craters with names, and I've included, this is 50 things to see on the moon. There's really about 100 objects in here, plus about 12 or 13 of lunar seas we named. So we'll go through these main targets. Most of these we can actually see tonight, and then the lunar seas as well. So the reason we have 3 views is because depending on what type of telescope you're using, your view is different. So tonight we are using this view because we're using a Newtonian telescope, which rotates your view of the moon 180 degrees. A lot of the time I use my SCT telescope with a diagonal, so then I would use this view here, which offers a mirror image of the moon. And this is just a map of the lunar seas. If you were to buy this book today, we fixed this so that it doesn't go down the crease here. It's 2 moons on one side and 1 on the other. So anyway, again, 50 things to see on the moon. Let's go back to the moon, see if it's still there. Again, this is not a tracking telescope, so I have one hand on it here. So I'm gonna keep going back and adjusting it as we go. And the other challenge is I don't think I can, there is a like magic marker here. I don't think I can draw on it because it would be nice to have a mouse cursor to sort of, show what I'm pointed at. The other thing I want to see is, can I see your guys' chat, live chat? Okay. Oh, there we go. Do moon filters all work the same, or do some filters work better? I think there's 2 types. I think there are polarized filters, and then there's some that are just like sunglasses. So polarized filters work by reducing reflected light. The moon is all reflected light for the most part, or it is all reflected light, but some of it is more reflective than others. So parts have, it's called high albedo. So there's places on the moon that are white. They are, the composition of the surface is almost glass-like, so it's a little bit more reflective than the dark spots on the moon. And so the polarized filters will increase contrast, whereas a cheaper filter is probably just like sunglasses. It's just tinted glass. And so the polarized ones are probably a little fancier. A lot of telescopes come with a moon filter, and I'm guessing based on, I have a lot of kids' telescopes just from what I do, and I'm guessing most of those filters are just like sunglasses. It's just filtered. But the polarized ones apparently increase contrast. I usually just forget. I forget to put them on. I mean, I've got no filter on here right now, and this looks good enough for me. Even the, you know, the sun's shining almost directly on this limb of the moon right here, right? And we're seeing quite a bit of detail. Not as much as we would on, you know, the Terminator here, where it's basically sunset on the moon. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I don't think moon filters are, you know, more than 20 bucks if you were to go buy them. But again, I think the time to use the sunglass one is if you're going back and forth between lunar observing and observing the stars. And in that case, it would definitely help. Yeah, unfortunately, we're probably not going to get any airplanes crossing the moon tonight. Where we are in Nova Scotia, a lot of the transatlantic flights come by here, but there's just not that many planes in the sky in this part of the world. I had Flight Radar 24 on today, and there were only 2 planes within about 500 miles of Nova Scotia at that point. Yeah, so see, there's 6 people on here, so nice timing from Auckland, New Zealand. Yeah. Yeah, you guys get the eclipse. We don't. The only place in Canada that's going to get it is Vancouver on the west coast. So, yeah, super jealous. I haven't photographed a, 1995 Bobby on in hardcover. That version is done by Formac Publishing, the hardcover. So that version might have the crease, depending on which printing it is, through that one map. It's fine for the rest of the book, but there's a crease on that lunar sea map. So I fixed that in the paperback. Yeah, the paperback, I believe, is a little bit less expensive. It's $15. I try to get all my astronomy books below $20. The exception is in Australia. There's a huge book tax or something. What filter would you recommend viewing the supermoon? Like I said, I don't really use filters. I mean, you could try the best thing to do is just experiment, right? It takes no time to put a filter on or off. I wouldn't buy one for it. Again, I only use it when I remember, and I use the one that comes with a telescope. So in this case, I might throw a polarized one on here or what. Anyway, but I think the thing that makes you appreciate the moon the most, I'm going to try and zoom in even more here, see if it doesn't switch cameras on me. That's not bad. Is just getting to know the moon and appreciating the names of the features and why they're named what they're named. So for example, if I center it here, this is the Mare Crisium, which means the Sea of Crisis. How long can you see with 66x magnification is a question. So 66 magnification is about this. That would be about 66. So that's what it looks like. I'm not sure what you mean how long, but you know, the moon's not going to hurt your eyes. No matter how bright it is, it's not as it's like looking at a rock in the sunshine. You know, it's not any brighter than that. Oh, thanks, Bobby. Means a lot to me. Yeah, so let's just walk through some of these features. So that's the Sea of Crises there. Now the lunar seas are named after the states of the sea or how the sea might make you feel. So as you go through them, so if I center it on this guy right here, that's the Sea of Serenity right there. If we go over here, that's the Sea of Rain, and this circular crater, if I center that right there, that's Mare Imbrium. Or sorry, gosh, I'm not even saying that right. Sinus Iridum is the name of that. And then the mountain range that make up that sort of C shape there, reverse C in this case, are the Juras Mountains. I'm doing that from memory, so I might have to make sure I get the pronunciation right when I look it up. If I center it here between the Sea of Tranquility, that's the Sea of Tranquility right there, and the Marsh, and the Sea of Crisis is the Marsh of Sleep. So that's that really light patch that's really smooth, is the Marsh of Sleep. I don't know. That's really pretty to me. I love it. Okay, if we go over here, this is the Sea of Fertility, and I'm going to try to zoom in. So one of my favorite craters are the Messier craters right here. And it's a double crater, and they're really tiny. But it's one of the few craters that's a double crater. Or sorry, there's a lot of double craters, but this one is caused by, I believe, one rock or one asteroid that came in at a very shallow angle. And so it punched a hole, and you see there's two double rays of light of just, well, it's ejecta, but it's highly reflective. And anyway, and then so the second crater, I believe, is a cave-in. So just a really interesting feature. So that's the Messier craters, and they're centered right in the middle there. What eyepiece am I using? So for whatever reason, I've been doing a lot of astrophotography, and I can't find a bunch of my eyepieces. So I'm using, I think, a 24 millimeter fossil eyepiece that came with an 8-inch Dob I bought from an unemployed computer programmer in Concord, California. So I bought this old telescope for $200, and it came with this eyepiece that's missing its eye cup. And so I just happened to have this attached to the adapter, and I threw it in. I would love to use a zoom eyepiece on here, but I don't know what I did with it. Yeah, so this is a 24 millimeter eyepiece. This is the focal length on this telescope is 1500 millimeters, I believe. So if you just divide those two numbers, that's the magnification. What can you see with 66 magnification? So 66 magnification, I mean, the moon will look exactly like this. You can see this much detail. So as much as your eye can pick out there. The resolution of your telescope is determined by the diameter of the mirror, or the primary mirror or the lens. And there's a formula where you can calculate it. Usually it's posted on the specs. And basically that's, the resolution is defined as the smallest feature where you can differentiate sort of one point from another. So if you had two stars that were side by side, it's the minimum distance where you could still see them. What telescope are you using? This is a 12-inch Dobsonian, so this is a big lug of a telescope. No computer. I'm literally just pushing it every few seconds with my hand. So it's really kind of cool. If I zoom way in, and I'm lucky the camera's it's not switching cameras on me. You can see that any movement here is the rotation of the Earth. So pretty cool. One of my favorite features just coming into view here, I call it the Lunar M. It looks like sort of a mu. This is the Ripheus Mountains. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Really cool. I think it looks like, well, here it almost looks like a sum sign. I'm usually looking at it with a different, not with a Newtonian telescope, so it's the other way around. It looks more like an M. I have to refocus the scope here. Yeah. That's clear. Love it. Another thing, can we see the straight wall? I'm not sure. So one of the most famous features tonight, or well, probably last night, is the straight wall. So it's a big, I think it's about right in there, but we can't see it because it's in too much sunshine. So it's a 200-mile long wall that gets illuminated in the moon's waning phases, and it's the big shadow in the moon's waxing phases. So if you hear sounds in the background, that's my dog digging in the garage. Yeah, really intricate detail. So if I center it here, one of the challenges that I always give myself is to see the Hadley Ryle. And that's where Apollo 15 landed. So it's one of the only places where you can see this big ravine that the astronauts drive up to in the lunar rover. And they take pictures of it, and you can see it from a backyard telescope on a really good night. And so it's right tucked into these mountains here. Let me experiment here and see if I can zoom in a little more. Well, it's not switching cameras on me, but it doesn't look like we have the resolution on the phone to pick it up. And that's, Yeah. So the telescope is pointed right at where Apollo 15 landed, but I don't see the ravine. The resolution is just not quite there. So I'm just estimating, but I'm guessing every pixel on the iPhone screen here, or on your screen in your case, is about 2 miles. So, but still an impressive amount of zoom. Yeah, so someone just mentioned they're getting an 8-inch. This is really close to what you would see in an 8-inch with your eyes, what you're looking at now. I really like the 8-inch. We have 10 of them at St. Mary's, and that's usually what I give the students, you know, to do some of their projects with, instead of using our, $1 million scope in the dome. It's a whole lot of fun after you learn to use the 8-inch scope. And if they're not doing anything that you need a scientific instrument for, it's a whole lot of fun. You can just, see, if you know what you're looking for, 30 or 40 targets in a sitting. Yeah. Let's see if I can just rail off some of these targets here. So that really smooth crater in the middle, where am I broadcasting from? I'm broadcasting from Halifax, Nova Scotia. So 44 degrees north latitude, 63 degrees west, I think. I call this one, if you look in the lunar sea and close to the mountains, I call it the hot dog. It's actually called the Straight Range. All the mountains on the moon are named after mountains on Earth. So right here beside Plato, that smooth round one, these are the Alps. And then there's a gash in the moon in the center of the screen, if you can see that right there. That's the Alpine Valley. So if that's near the Terminator, that's very striking. Oop. So right in the center right there, that's Archimedes. And those two craters to the left, where you have one bigger one and one slightly smaller, those, if you follow them up to the mountains there, point to the Apollo 15 landing site. So that's a really quick way to find that. Again, if it's a really clear night, and you can see that twisty Hadley Ryle, that's something worth Googling, the Hadley Ryle. That's my challenge target for whenever I'm viewing the moon on these nights. My dad accidentally bought me a telescope. Some drunk Amazon purchasing or what? How do you accidentally buy a telescope? I think people accidentally buy telescopes that aren't very good all the time. Okay. Anyway, right in the center, this is Tycho. So Tycho is the one, when it's a full moon, you see those rays of ejecta that sort of spray star-like across the whole surface of the moon. So it's not the star of the show tonight, but on a full moon, that's the only small crater that really stands out. Okay, if I let go of the scope here, let me go a little farther than I need to be and let it bounce back. Right in the center here is Clavius. So this moon is the one featured in 2001: A Space Odyssey. I actually haven't seen that movie since I was a kid, probably in the 90s. Harley going by here in the background. Yeah, so that's where the lunar base was in that. I saw it recently referenced in Adam Savage's, one of his tested videos. He met up with Chris Hadfield and they went to Comic-Con. So obviously it was filmed a year or so ago. And they dressed up in disguise as the astronauts from Clavius Station. So kind of a cool YouTube video to watch there. But again, that's Clavius. So that's a good, if you're doing one of these Explore the Moon programs like we have with the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, that's a 100 target program, and you get a certificate and a pin if you document that you've seen all these targets. Clavius is a good reference crater because you can see it right away, and then some of the other targets are these smaller craters around it. And if you know where Clavius is, then those craters are really easy to find. All right, jumping all over the place. That's Ptolemaeus right in the center. And then above it are two craters I can't pronounce, Alphonsus and Arzuchel. I am terrible with pronunciations. Anyway. So over here, that's Copernicus in the middle. And it is a ray crater. So during the full moon, you can really see that ejecta all around it. I call it part of the lunar triangle. So there's 3 craters, 2 of them you can't really see, Kepler and Aristarchus, and they're all connected by these rays of ejecta, and they make a big triangle, which is kind of cool. Of course, everyone likes, let's see if we can find the Apollo 11 landing site. There's a really easy way to find it. Of course, you can't see it. You can't see the actual base of the LEM there. Because remember, like I said, every pixel here is 2 miles. So you're just not going to get that close. And if I get the focus right, there's a group of craters, and I'll try and center them, that look like a perfect L. Well, I'm not sure if we'll actually get it here. So in the Sea of Tranquility, there is an L shape of craters. It's kind of weird. I usually do it the other way. Anyway, the bottom of the L points at the lunar, the Apollo 11 landing site. And I do think they're a little bit too washed out. Better to see them, during first quarter or slightly before. And then Deep Sky Dude, who you guys all probably follow, he has something he points out, a feature along the Sea of Tranquility called the Lunar Texas. And I'm not quite sure which of these features. I think it's one of these sort of like peninsulas that sticks out into that sea, and he calls it the Lunar Texas. I'm a little out of focus here. I'm going to see if I can fix that. Sometimes the iPhone's focus and the telescope focus, they fight with each other. So, yeah, let's see if we can zoom out here. So, yeah, those craters, it doesn't look like we're going to see the location of the Apollo 11 here. I think those craters, those reference craters, are just too washed out. But the mountains up here that are centered on these are the Taurus Litro, or Taurus Mountains, sorry, and Taurus Litro Valley is where one of the Apollo missions landed. I think I can look it up here if I let go of the telescope for a second. Ooh, I didn't write that down on that page. Anyway, I think that's Apollo 12 landed in there. I'll have to look that up again. Let me go to chats here. Live chat. Oh, The Moon is the Heart's Mistress. That's a book. Yeah. I think I have that. I typically order anytime someone recommends a book to me, I order it. But now I've gotten behind on my books, despite having, I've probably read 15 books this year. Although half of them are The Expanse and half of them are business books, because, I have an astrophysics degree, but I also have a finance degree, so I still keep up with business stuff. So it's getting darker out here. I did try a couple nights ago to do some, what was I doing? I'm getting emails at the same time, getting distracted here. Look at some deep sky objects. So get away from the moon, look at some open star clusters, but on Facebook Live, but I wasn't able to, within the app itself, get the phone to sort of like focus on something that dim. The moon is incredibly bright, which makes it easy. But deep sky objects, not so much. Oh, how are you getting so close? So this is a telescope with a focal length of 1,500 millimeters, and it's got a 12-inch mirror, so the resolution is quite high. The limiting factor here by probably about half a pixel is the iPhone. So if the phone's camera was a higher resolution, it would be a little bit sharper when we zoom in. Not too much sharper, but because we should be able to see, in astronomy terms, like an arc second, or about, 1 mile resolution. But it looks like, I'm guessing we're at 2 miles here. So every pixel is about 2 miles. But this is a really big honking telescope, so that's how we're doing it. Yeah. So we're definitely out of focus here. Yeah, 80 millimeters and 40 millimeter eyepiece. That's Charlie. I would go up to a 10 millimeter just for fun to see if I could pull it off. I finished the Royal Astronomical Society's Explore the Moon program last month, partially because I was hosting a show about it. But anyway, I figured I'd do the program. So that's 100 targets. And I used a 70 millimeter. I used a 70 millimeter telescope with a 26 millimeter eyepiece with a Barlow, so the equivalent of a 13 millimeter eyepiece. And I was able to get all the targets, but you don't zoom in like this. So I did pretty much the whole program looking at the moon like about that much magnification. Really fun program though. You just Google Explore the Moon and you can download. You can do it without, getting the certificate and joining the club here in Canada, but we do have some folks in the States that join and get certificates as well. I think probably works out to about 50 US dollars. The lower the focal length of the eyepiece, the more magnification. Yeah. So, I mean, you can think of a telescope as just two magnifying glasses, one held at arm's length and one near your eye. And the ratio of the focal lengths is the magnification. So if they were both the same focal length, it wouldn't magnify at all. And then as the one closer to your eye gets smaller, the magnification increases. But all the zooming I'm doing here is it's just the iPhone. So as I zoom in, we're not increasing the resolution at all. We're just zooming into the screen. So, I could hypothetically pull the this eyepiece off, put in a lower focal length eyepiece, and then get in a little closer that way. The challenge is then you run into the telescope's limiting resolution there. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's true with any telescope. Whenever you use different eyepieces to zoom in, you're not really you're not increasing the resolution when you zoom in. You're just making the picture bigger. The only way to increase the resolution is to get a fatter telescope. So, which is just a property of the wavelength of light. Resolution is dependent on aperture. And there's Tycho there. And let me just name off some of these craters. And I wish I had this book memorized. It's been about 3 years since I actually wrote it, maybe 4. Because every crater is a story about the scientist or a philosopher or a religious person that it's named after, which is cool. And what I wish I had in the book but didn't get to include are there's 14 craters on the moon here that are named after women that you can see with a backyard telescope. I believe there's 28 craters named after women in total. But 14 you can see from backyard telescope because they're on the near side. I mean, we can see maybe one here. You can see that C shape right in the center. One of the little craters in front of it is Herschel, after Caroline Herschel, William Herschel's sister, I believe. And then over here, there's the dumbbell craters. Maybe I should put a filter on here. Not a lot of contrast over here. But there's craters that to me look like a dumbbell, so I nicknamed them the dumbbell in the book. And one of them is Katrina, and that's named after a saint, Saint Katrina, who might not have existed. The Catholic Church apparently invented her because a mob had killed a pagan philosopher. And so the Catholic Church came up with the story that the pagans had killed this Catholic girl, and they sainted her. And apparently that was used to pacify the mob. This is in about the year 400. And so, but yeah, so the the pagan philosopher that was murdered by the Catholic mob was Hypatia, I believe. And she's got a crater or a mountain as well about around here. But again, we're a little too washed out to pick out those features tonight. So centered here on the Sea of Serenity. Love the questions. These keep me going. Here, let's bring up the chat again, see if I missed any. So let me just do a reverse here. You can probably see how it is getting dark here. Let me hide these comments. But we don't have any stars tonight yet. It's too bright for that. And again, I'm just using my book, 50 Things to See on the Moon, and it's kind of dark out here, so I'm not going through it too much, but I just have on the beginning of the chapters, I have a list without any details of just the main features in the book. And it is 50 Things to See on the Moon, but it's really 50 areas of focus. So there's, one feature might be the Gang of Four, which is 4 craters that are visible on day 2 of the lunar cycle. And so the book is organized by lunar days. So I start with about day 2, which is right after new moon. So that's when the moon is just a crescent or a toenail, as my son calls it. And then as each day passes, you get a little bit more moon. And there's 14 different days I cover, right from the day 2 moon to day 14 moon, which is the full moon. And I cover about 3 objects or 3 sections of the moon per day. And there's always something cool in each section. And so you can see I always include 3 views. So depending on what type of telescope you're using, or if you're just using a small telescope, most small telescopes just give a binocular view, and they used an imaging erect diagonal so that it's not backwards, upside down, or anything. But more advanced telescopes like this one, they do a 180 rotation on your image, and so you want to use this map, and then refractor and SET telescope like a Schmidt-Cassegrain, you would use this map right here. So, but I don't know. This was a great experience. So I basically didn't know anything about the moon before I wrote the book, and I went out and I just observed the moon, and I was like, well, what features are jumping out for me? And then I researched what that feature was, and then I looked at the history behind the person that it was named after, and it was really enlightening, and I don't know, it was just a cool experience to sort of learn history at the same time. And then the book came out, and it got picked up by Celestron, and they packaged it with all their beginner telescopes for the Apollo 50th celebration. Excuse me. Go back here. And Father's Day is coming up, so a lot of people buying telescopes for Father's Day. So I might do another one of these and just do a, Q&A for what telescope to get Dad, because it's a really complicated question. What telescope to buy, because it's very budget dependent and it's very use dependent. So like I have probably 5 or 6 telescopes that I would say are almost like professional telescopes, but then I have, because you need a telescope, there's a telescope for every job. Depending on what type of object you're photographing or what you're trying to accomplish, you use a different telescope. So what telescope should I buy is complicated, especially when people have budget constraints. And because you get what you pay for, true, but there's a lot of crap at every price range, and that makes it really challenging. So there's I forget his name now. There's another channel that he just reviews telescopes. Ed something. And so he does a really great job, except that there's telescopes that are sub $100, or not sub $100, sub $200 or $300 that I think are actually decent, and he would never recommend. So, because there's a rare one that comes out of Costco that actually functions correctly. I'll usually go and buy it and test it, before I recommend it. So if you look behind me, I've got a ton of telescopes in the garage. Got my 80 millimeter, 50 millimeter guide scope. Oh, the comment disappeared. It's a comment from Charlie Ford. The 120mm Mini. I have that one too, and I think there's two versions. There's the one that's color. I assume you're using the mono one if you're guiding with it. Trying to bring up that comment again. It keeps disappearing on me. I'm just waiting on my EQ6R Pro. Yeah, that's a great mount. I have that one actually right behind me. If I move out of the way here. Oh, you can't see it. If I move the telescope down, I'll go back to the moon. No. Let me find the moon again. Yeah, the EQ6R Pro was a big step up for me from the Celestron AVX that I was using before. Although I still use the AVX for visual now because it's so much lighter. I'm gonna, hurt my back one of these days lugging the EQ6 out. And I've only got the 60 millimeter telescope, the Sharpstar 61 on it right now because I need some wide field shots for a book I'm working on. We're just finishing up a book on the Messier objects right now, so. Wow, Charlie, the EQ6 is your first mount. Wow, you're really going pro right away. I love it. Charlie Ford, are you related to Chris Ford from the astronomer that works for Pixar? He was Chris Ford was the president of my astronomy club in California. Super cool guy. The brains behind a bunch of the Pixar movies. It's interesting, as it's getting darker, the iPhone is really fighting the focus here. I wonder if it's just off. That's a little better. You can see, if I just look up with my eyes, there is quite a halo. So if I move away, it's quite a haze around the moon. You can see with my eyes. And unfortunately, there's houses blocking all the winter constellations that are still up. Spring is a tough time. I'm stargazing from a city because almost all the spring targets are galaxies. Spring targets to the south, anyway. What's your favorite scope? Oh, gosh. The best scope is the one you use the most. I've probably been using a C90 the most. No, that's not true this year. When I was traveling a lot, I would take the C90 everywhere. So I love this 12-inch. I love this 12-inch Dob, but I don't use it as much because it's very heavy and I got to lug it around. But the C90 is cool. For imaging, I use the carbon fiber AR102 refractor from Explore Scientific, and I love it. It just doesn't give me any troubles. And I love I have bought a used C8, and that is a great telescope for just sharing views of the moon and planets. And I would have used it tonight, but I just thought this would be more fun because, I'm just steering this around with my left hand, just literally holding on to the opening of the telescope. Yeah, Explore Scientific is really definitely the best value in a telescope by twofold, I would say. I don't have any of their really fancy eyepieces, but I'm sure they're way up there with TelView. So I work at a professional observatory, so I get to play with all those fancy toys at work when I used to go to work. I haven't been there in a year and a half. We can just log on. When we have students, we just log on to the telescope, remote PC, and control the telescope over the computer and just use the cameras. So yeah, I love the questions. You might hear my wife knock on the window here in a minute. We're in the middle of the movie Alien because she got upset because I'd never seen the movie Alien, so we're watching that tonight. We started watching it last night, but I fell asleep. Astronomers get very sleepy, especially because I have a newborn baby at home. That doesn't help. Yeah, how are you using your phone on the eyepiece? I'm using a Celestron XYZ. So I have about 6 of these cheap iPhone adapters. This is the only one that doesn't make me angry. It's not perfect, but it's, this is the next Celestron XYZ adapter is about 4 times as expensive as the the next one. Well, I don't know. I bought it on sale. It was $50 Canadian, so that's only $40 US. But all these ones that I paid $20 and less for just are a pain in the butt. Oh, you're having a super hard time with it. So the key for me has been putting the eyepiece in first and just making sure it's super flush with the clamp. Because if the phone is not precisely looking down the barrel, there's what's called an exit pupil on an eyepiece. So when you look at an eyepiece, your eye has to be perfectly positioned. And so the phone has to hit this very small target. And if the phone is cockeyed in any way, then it won't work. And so, yeah. Wish there was a way to lock it. I feel like that's what that little orange knob is. For me, it's locked tight. It's solid. So there's an orange thing that you could punch this and it wouldn't move. And someone was talking about 50 things to see with a telescope. Yeah, so my first book was 50 things to see with a small telescope. And then I did a kids version, which still sells really well today. People love that kids version, and I think adults buy it more than kids. And then a major sort of I guess a step down from major publisher, a major Canadian publisher, took that book and they turned it into what today is the book 50 Things to See with a Telescope. An ASI 224. That's the uncooled mono or color camera, I think, isn't it, for planets? Yeah. I have the ZWO 294, so that's their sort of entry level cooled camera, which I've had a lot of fun with, but I definitely notice that what it could be if it were a monocam. So, yeah, apparently, not apparently, there is a big difference between the color cameras and in terms of the detail you pick up in nebula and stuff between the color camera and the black and white cameras or the mono cameras. You definitely get a lot more detail with those black and white cameras. And then, you just have to go through the whole process of using the filters. And, mostly what I use the camera for is for outreach. So I don't really care about spending all night processing the images. I just want the image right away. Yeah, DAW would be really challenging. Well, if you're using it for planetary imaging, the DAW would be all right, but it would bounce around a lot. Although I run everything through, when I do planets, I run it through PIPP, or at least I used to, and then that would, no matter how much is bouncing around, it'll go and stick that planet right in the center of the screen. PIPP is just some free software for planets. You can use it on the space station too, and the moon. So this, oh, that would be neat. If anyone knows if if the space station's going over tonight, this would pick it up. So the space station's about at this level of zoom, is about as big as one of those craters. One of the smaller craters. Gosh, I've been talking for 45 minutes. Throat's getting dry. I'm tempted to pull the phone off and just show you the setup here, but I don't have a way to light it up now that it's dark out. I don't know if the iPhone will turn its light on. Maybe I can give that a shot here. I'll pull it off. So you can see the moon illuminating the sort of hole there. Yeah. So the question is, can I turn the light on? No. It's locking me out. Here, let's try these features here. Enable flash. Ha! Oh, there we go. Yeah, so here's the setup. There's the XYZ. There's the what locks it in place. I use a Telrad to find the moon. There it is. Or there it is. And I only keep the finder scope on here to protect the Telrad. So the Telrad sits between the focuser and the eyepiece. So this keeps it safe. There. So that was the setup, and you can see here the telescope. And you're talking about the EQ6. So I have this here waiting for it to get darker because it's still not dark. Are you tracking the moon? No, I was just holding it with my hand like this and just pushing it. So this scope is ready to go. I haven't used this one successfully yet because I had to order. It takes a custom field flattener that you put right here. I thought the one I already had would work. And then, so here's the ASI Air that lets me talk to it, that beams the images direct to the phone. And there's your 120mm and your 294 MC Pro. This mount is definitely overkill. When I go anywhere, I'm going to pull that off and then if we go, and you can see the just pile of telescopes in here. There's a Newtonian. Where is it? Lost in the pile. Oh, maybe it's in the house. There's the old used C8. Yeah. Well, now I'm confused. Where did that little mount go? Anyway, so I'm going to use that little Skywatcher travel mount. I'm second guessing myself. It should be in here. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, it's in front of the snowmobile. Yeah, so this is my travel scope here. So that whole imaging setup will go on this guy. I forget the name of this mount now. GTR or GTI or something. Someone's asking what my favorite scope was for travel. This is definitely it. I'd be a kid in a candy store in your garage. Yeah. Well, I do this for a living. So I write books about telescopes, and it helps to be able to sort of know every scope inside and out. So this is the C90, and it's been a classic telescope for like 30 years. And these were only $129 2 years ago on Amazon. And I just put it on my Christmas list, and my mother-in-law got it for me. And I can fit this and this mount and my laptop and my cameras in a backpack and carry them on the plane. So, and a bunch of eyepieces. And I put a Telrad on it, or a Rigel Quick Finder that snaps in there. And it's just been a blast. And these have like pixie dust in them or something is what they call it, because I've seen galaxies from the city with this. And the reason it's able to do that, I mean, it's pixie dust, but it's the magnification in light polluted sky gives you contrast. And so certain galaxies you're able to pick up that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do with a scope that didn't naturally have that much focal length. And there's your, this is the Celestron, this is that LT one, StarSense Explorer. So this is not a good scope itself. It's quite poorly designed. It's really rickety on this mount, but the StarSense is brilliant. To be able to pick up your scope and just have it automatically aligned to the sky, it uses this, you use your phone, it's got this mirror. But what I'd like to do, and I don't think you're allowed, I'm gonna take this off and put it on my Dob, because this would be really good if you've got dark skies for just flying through that Messier list. So again, just unscrewing this from here and then putting it on the big scope out there, or maybe even, this guy, because you would just fly through targets. This finds things in the sky so fast. What sucks is that this telescope it's just underpowered. So it'll find things, but you won't be able to see them. So, am I friends with Astro Backyard? I wish. I've sent him emails, and I think he's just a really, really busy guy. He makes his money off the YouTube channel, and that keeps him very busy. So his wife now works on that full time. So I've reached out to him, but haven't heard back. So I make my money as an author. So I'm on book 13 now. So recent books are like Space Missions That Changed the World, Things to Know About the International Space Station. A lot of them are for, they're like middle school textbooks. And my wife wrote 50 Animals That Have Been to Space. So, which actually outsold me in Canada. So she was dancing around the house when we got our royalty from the publisher, and she realized she was outselling me with her Animals in Space book. But anyway, it was pretty funny. Yeah. So hopefully I get to test this for the first time tonight. Usually I have a bigger scope on here, but this scope is really, I like to say my shoe is bigger than this scope, because it's basically the scope starts here. This is all camera adapter, right? So the scope is just about as the length of my hand. But this is for really wide angle pictures of space. But even from a city, you can pick up galaxies and stuff, no problem. And again, the mount is just way overpowered for what we're trying to accomplish here. But here's your 50 millimeter guide scope, which is on a helical focuser, the 120 ZWO 120 mini there, and the cooled color camera. Yeah. And again, here's the Dobsonian that we're taking the moonshots with. Big plane did just go by. So let's take that flash off, if we can do that. Let's go back to the moon for a minute. All right, see if we can find it again. The funny thing is, every time I take the phone, it's a really solid mount, but for some reason, every time I take the phone on and off again, it does lose its place. Left or right. There we go. In and out's probably fine. Let's look at that and zoom in again. There we go. So we can see how this will do on a star. If we can pull it over to Arcturus here. Yeah, there we go. So there's Arcturus. Nothing really for the telescope to focus on here. Oh, those are nearby stars. So, do you have an iPhone 12? I have an iPhone 11 with the 3 cameras. Yeah. So, Charlie, you need to download the app Nightcap. And then it's about $2.99, and it doesn't switch cameras on you. It's neat. You can see on the image here, I call these UFOs. They're not, though. So I think this is what a lot of UFOs are. See that little dot that I can make it circle around? So you're going to get an internal reflection in a camera. And they often look like discs. But so, and stars in general. So all stars are point sources. So this, what you see here is what's called an Airy disk. Well, this might be an out of focus one, but an Airy is someone's name, Airy, and the disk shape is just it's caused by diffraction inside the telescope, and the size of the disk is dependent on the diameter of your telescope. So the bigger your telescope, the smaller stars will be. The smaller, hypothetically, you'll be able to resolve stars. So again, there's Arcturus and some neighboring star. Let's see if we can see any others nearby. Okay, so we may be able to get some star clusters in here, but you can see that the background there looks super black. So I don't know if we'd be able to pump that up at all. And I also don't know, so that is a visual, that, excuse me, we're not seeing any stars that we can't see visually. So, I don't even know if we'd pick up Starlink satellites if they were to fly across the frame. Let's see if some open star clusters like NGC 457 is my favorite. But it's in part of the sky right now that's way too light. So let's hop over and see what we got. Our star there, that might be Regulus. And come to think of it, yeah, that's Regulus. We might, oh no, it's behind my house. I was going to say we might be able to pick up the Beehive cluster. It's pretty bright, but it's behind my house. Oh, we can see, let's try this. Let's experiment. Let's try Mizar and Alcor here. This is almost straight up for the telescope, but we should be able to get them. Oop, that's out of focus now. Oh, there we go. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good. So that double star there is Mizar, and then the top one is Alcor. And then right beside Mizar, we can see a background star. Oh, wait. No, that is Alcor. We are way zoomed in here. And then this double star there is Mizar. So this is the middle star in the arm of the Big Dipper. So it looks like as it gets darker, we are seeing some dimmer stars here. Yeah, you'll love Nightcap, Charlie. And Vega is up now. So here's, oh, I can see it, but it's behind my garage. So a cool thing about, let's go over to Arcturus here. Yeah, the iPhone doesn't know what to focus on. And if I zoom all the way out, there's a cluster of stars over here called Napoleon's Hat. Looks like a big hat, but I'm not sure if... I know you can see them easily with an eyepiece, but it doesn't look like the Facebook app has enough sensitivity in it. Let me see if there's any other options. Dance party. It gives you funky camera controls, but not realistic ones. Okay. Have you ever used Astroberry, or did you always use the ASI Pro? I've only used the ASI Pro, or the university software, which is Earth-centered universe. But yeah. So this moon is behind clouds now. So there's a thin layer of clouds in front of it. Kind of cool. Or that actually might be jet wash. All right, let me see if it's a long shot, but maybe we can try a globular cluster. Let's try it here. No, I think that's not going to happen. Oh, there's a satellite. Let's try and get that. Oh, I just saw it for a second. I don't think that's a space station, but still kind of cool. Anyway, you can see it flying across the frame there. Well, there's an hour. I bet my wife's gone to bed by now. See if I missed any questions. Okay. Bobby has the Celestron StarSense DX. Yeah, I should have tried the DX as opposed to going the LT, but I wanted to see, because probably more people are buying the LT, I wanted to see if that was functional, but it seems like that, for one, the Burr-Jones, which is a sort of a cheater lens they put in the focuser to double the magnification. It seems like that really washes out anything you'd actually want to look at besides the moon and planets. So there's the Sea of Tranquility for you. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. This was kind of fun. I might do this again. What time is it for me? I don't know. I'd look at my phone, but I'd lose you guys. It is probably 9:30. We're on Atlantic time, so an hour ahead of Eastern. This is kind of fun. This is me letting go and just letting the Earth's rotation change our view. You can see how this is how poor the seeing is. It almost looks like we're at the bottom of a swimming pool looking at the moon. And that's just the waviness of the atmosphere. It's the Ripheus Mountains again. One of the Apollo missions landed. Actually, two of the Apollo missions landed right here. I just forget which ones they were. Probably 16, 17 or something. There's Copernicus. A lot of people like to photograph Copernicus because the crater walls are very intricate. You can see them sort of when the phone snaps into focus there. We try for the Hadley Ryle again. How far can we zoom in? It looks like that's all we're going to get. So this is where Apollo 15 landed. But not very clear. Do you ever get a live session when you're shooting a galaxy? I could do that. It'd be a lot of effort. So the way to do that would be to bring my Mac outside, and you would just plug it into the iPhone and do a screen share. Actually, I have done that. I have done that from inside the house. Yeah, because I don't need to be wired to the telescope. So yeah, maybe I'll think about that. But what I don't know how to do is screen share, or yet. I'm sure it's easy. I've never screen shared onto Facebook. So that would be a learning curve for me. Actually, this is pretty clear right here. I'm almost wondering if that little crater right there is Herschel, after Caroline Herschel. That one right in the center. But this is a great view of the Jura Mountains. Plato, Alps Mountains, Alpine Valley right there in the center. Aristarchus. Now I'm just going from memory. Marsh of Sleep. Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Clear skies. Now I'm just procrastinating. I really got to back up. We'll end on Clavius. All right, thanks, everyone. Ciao.